Hi everyone. I, Rachel, 27F, just got married a week ago to my lovely husband, Jaden, 32M. And the wedding was straight out of a telenovela. It all started 2 years ago at a local coffee shop. I was a regular there, needing my morning caffeine fix to wake myself up for work. One day, this tall guy with kind eyes stood in line right behind me. He seemed nice, but honestly, I wasn't really paying attention. All I could think about was getting my hands on a latte. Later that week, I bumped into him again. This time, we ended up chatting while waiting for our coffees. We talked about all sorts of things, our favorite books, weird childhood experiences, even our love for that cozy coffee shop. We ended up laughing a lot, and for the first time that day, I felt truly awake. Looking back, I realize I was a bit quick to judge at first. Maybe because I was so focused on my own routine, or maybe because Jaden wasn't exactly the type of guy I typically went for. But that day, something shifted. There was this genuine kindness about him, a warmth in his smile that I couldn't ignore. We exchanged numbers, and that very night, Jaden texted me asking if I wanted to grab dinner sometime. We ended up going to this tiny Italian place tucked away on a side street. The food was amazing, but the best part was the conversation. We talked for hours and it felt effortless. We learned that we had a surprising amount in common, a love for old movies, a secret passion for karaoke, although neither of us is very good, and tacos. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other more and more. We went on hikes, explored museums, and even tried, and failed, to take a pottery class together. The more time I spent with Jaden, the more I realized how special he was. He was funny, intelligent, supportive, and always knew how to make me smile. He challenged me to be a better person, and he made me feel like I could be myself completely around him. Then, on our second anniversary, Jaden surprised me with the most incredible proposal. We were on a weekend getaway to a charming cabin in the mountains. It was snowing softly outside, and we were cuddled up by the fireplace when Jaden got down on one knee and pulled out a ring. I don't even remember what he said exactly, because all I could focus on was the love shining in his eyes. Of course, I said yes. Right from the moment we got back from our cabin trip, I started planning my wedding with so much excitement. But this is where things took an unexpected turn. After Jaden and I got engaged, I met his mom, Maria, who's 57, for the very first time. She lived a bit out of town and hadn't had the chance to meet me until then. Initially, Maria was so sweet to me. She talked a lot about how she was excited to finally have a daughter-in-law. Jaden was her only child, and she mentioned that she had always wanted more children. So, having me join the family seemed like a big deal to her, almost like gaining another child. She even hugged me warmly and said she couldn't wait to get to know me better. However, things started to change quite quickly. That weekend, she came to stay with us to help with some wedding planning and to spend more time together. I was so happy at first, thinking we'd bond and become close. But as the weekend went on, her attitude began to shift in a way that made me uncomfortable. The first passive-aggressive comment came during breakfast on Saturday morning. I had made a batch of my favorite pancakes, and while Jaden was having a coffee in the backyard, Maria looked at me and said with a smile, "Oh, I guess you don't worry too much about carbs, huh?" I laughed it off at the time, thinking she was just making an offhand comment. But it stung a little. Later that day, while we were looking through some wedding dress magazines, Maria pointed at a model and said, "This dress is so beautiful. But it's designed for someone with a very specific figure. Not everyone can pull it off." She glanced at me as she said it. It felt like a subtle hint that she didn't think I could wear something like that. I just nodded and tried to brush it off, but I couldn't help feeling self-conscious. The comments kept coming. When we were out shopping for some decorations, she casually mentioned, "You know, my friend's daughter lost 20 pounds for her wedding. She looked so stunning. Have you thought about doing something like that?" I was shocked and didn't really know how to respond. I just mumbled something about being happy with my body as it is, but it made me feel like she was judging me for not trying to lose weight for the wedding. The next morning, she was looking through my kitchen cupboards and said, "Oh, you have a lot of snacks here. I try to keep my house a bit more on the healthy side. You don't want to end up gaining weight before the wedding, do you?" It was hard to believe she was still on about my weight, and it was starting to really hurt my feelings. I felt like she was picking on me, even though she always had a smile on her face and spoke in a seemingly kind tone. The weird thing was that Maria never made those comments in front of Jaden. It was like she had a switch that she turned on and off. When Jaden was around, she was all smiles and sweet words, but the moment he stepped out or was in another room, she'd make those passive-aggressive remarks. I felt like I was living in two different worlds, one where I was accepted and loved, and another where I was constantly judged and criticized. At first, I didn't think I should bring up this issue with Jaden. I mean, it's his mom, and I didn't want to create any tension between us, especially since we had just gotten engaged and were in such a happy place. I kept telling myself that it was just a small inconvenience and that I could handle it. Plus, I'm not exactly a thin girl, and I have curves. I love my body and am confident in it, which is something I've worked really hard to achieve. Maria's comments were more of a nuisance than anything else. I felt like she was trying to poke holes in my confidence, but I wasn't going to let her get to me. However, Maria started to visit us more and more. It felt like every weekend she was around, which was starting to drive me a bit crazy. I was working from Monday to Friday, and I only had the weekends to plan my wedding. Every time I turned around, Maria was there, offering help or just hanging around. It was hard to focus on wedding stuff when she was constantly present, making her little comments and acting like she knew better than I did. One weekend, she called me and said she'd be coming over again. I felt a knot in my stomach because I really needed some time to myself to plan things without her input. So, I told her that I was going to be busy and wouldn't be at home. She asked me what I was up to, and before I could stop myself, I blurted out that I was going to look at wedding dresses. I guess I just wanted her to know that I had important things to do. To my surprise, she got really excited and said she'd love to come along. I didn't know how to say no without sounding rude, so I reluctantly agreed. The next thing I knew, she was at my door with a big smile, talking about how thrilled she was to help me find the perfect dress. I tried to smile back, but inside, I was dreading how this shopping trip was going to go. We went to a few bridal shops, and from the moment we walked in, Maria was in full mom mode, suggesting dresses that I didn't like and making comments about how certain styles wouldn't suit my body shape. It was exhausting. I felt like I couldn't even breathe without her judging me. When I tried on a dress that I really liked, she said, "It's nice, but don't you think it's a bit tight around the waist? Maybe something more flowy would look better on you." I was so disappointed because I loved that dress, but her words made me second guess myself. By the end of the day, I hadn't found a dress, and I was feeling pretty down. Maria went back to her home and I finally had some peace. For the next few days, she kept hounding me about when I was going to look for dresses again through texts. I just kept telling her that I didn't know yet when I would have the time. I knew that this time, I wasn't going to tell her about when I was going to go shopping. But my plans kind of failed when Jaden told his mom that I was going dress shopping the next day. So she called me and asked at what time she should come to my place. Now, I had a decision to make. Maria had already made so many comments about my body that I dreaded the idea of her coming along. I knew that if I took her with me to the bridal shop, she would spoil the day with more comments and judgments. So, I decided to come up with an excuse. I told her that the bridal shop had a rule where I could only bring 2 people with me and that my mom and maid of honor were already on their way. Now, I know this was a very stupid lie. But at the moment, I couldn't think of anything else. Maria immediately pointed out how ridiculous my excuse was and said, "What kind of bridal shop only allows 2 people and that's just silly?" I scrambled for words and said, "I know, it's weird. But that's what they told me." I was sweating bullets because I knew how transparent my lie was. I quickly told her that I had to leave and cut the call before she could ask any more questions. As soon as I hung up, I felt a huge wave of guilt. I hated lying, especially to Jaden's mom, but I just couldn't handle another day of her making me feel bad about myself. I decided to focus on the positive and remind myself that today was supposed to be fun and exciting. My mom and maid of honor picked me up, and we headed to the bridal shop. I tried to shake off the lingering guilt and just enjoy the experience. And I was able to find a dress that I absolutely loved. After that, Maria didn't call me or text me, or even visit our house. She still talked to Jaden, which was a bit of a relief because it meant that there wasn't any awkwardness between them. I sent her a picture of me in the wedding dress, hoping to share some of my excitement with her. She just reacted to the image with a thumbs up emoji and didn't send anything else. I wasn't sure how to take that, but I decided not to dwell on it. I had so much to do with the wedding coming up that I didn't have time to worry about her. As my wedding day got closer, I got busier with all the preparations and honestly didn't text Maria again. There was a lot to coordinate, finalizing the guest list, confirming the caterers, and making sure all the decorations were perfect. Finally, the big day arrived. It was everything I had imagined and more. The ceremony was beautiful, and I couldn't stop smiling as I walked down the aisle towards Jaden. The look on his face when he saw me in my dress was priceless, and it made all the stress of planning worth it. We said our vows, exchanged rings, and just like that, we were married. The reception started off wonderfully. We had a gorgeous venue, and the weather was perfect. The food was delicious, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. I loved our first dance. Jaden and I had taken a few dance lessons, and we managed not to step on each other's toes. It felt like a fairy tale, and I was on cloud 9. Everything was going smoothly until I decided to get a drink. I walked over to the bar to grab something refreshing, and Maria was standing right there. She turned to me with a big smile and said, "You look like you're having a wonderful time. Let me get you a drink. Just relax and enjoy yourself." I was a bit surprised by her sudden enthusiasm but thought maybe she was trying to make up for all the awkwardness. She handed me a Shirley Temple, and I thanked her and took a sip. A few minutes later, I started feeling drowsy, but I thought that this was just because I was tired. But then, I fainted on the floor and lost consciousness. Everything went black, and the next thing I knew, Jaden was panicking and calling for an ambulance. I could hear the worry in his voice as he tried to keep me awake. People were gathering around, but it was all a blur. When the EMTs arrived, They quickly brought me back to consciousness and started asking questions about what I had eaten and drunk that day. I told them everything, including the meal I had at the reception and the Shirley Temple that Maria had given me. They were concerned and asked if there was anything unusual or if I had taken any medication. That's when Maria, looking a bit guilty, came forward and admitted that the drink she gave me had alcohol in it. She said she didn't think it would be a big deal and that she thought it would help me relax. I was shocked. Why would she add alcohol to my drink without telling me? Things got even more complicated when my maid of honor, Emily, spoke up. She told the EMTs that I had taken an anxiety medication just a few minutes before walking down the aisle. I had been so nervous about everything going smoothly that I took a small dose to calm my nerves. It turned out that the combination of the medication and the alcohol was what caused me to collapse. There must have been some chemical reaction that knocked me out. The EMTs explained that mixing alcohol with certain medications can be very dangerous and that I was lucky it wasn't more serious. Once the EMTs left, Jaden turned to Maria and told her to get out. His voice was trembling with anger, and Maria looked stunned. She tried explaining, saying she didn't mean any harm and that it was just a misunderstanding. But Jaden wasn't willing to listen to anything. He yelled at her to leave the reception right now. I had never seen him so upset, and it broke my heart to see him so angry with his mom on what should have been a happy day. With all the commotion, I was not feeling well, and the whole mood of the reception just plummeted. Guests were uncomfortable, and the joyful atmosphere we had worked so hard to create just evaporated. People started leaving one by one, and before we knew it, the reception shut down early. It was heartbreaking to see everyone leave so soon, and I felt like the day I had dreamed of for so long had been shattered. Jaden and I went back to our hotel room, and I was trying to process everything that had happened. I felt numb and exhausted, and the sadness hit me like a wave. This was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, but instead, it had turned into a disaster because of a stupid prank. I couldn't believe that Maria's thoughtlessness had ruined our special day. Maria kept texting and calling both me and Jaden, but neither of us responded. We just needed some time to process everything and figure out what to do next. I could see Jaden was really torn up about it. He loved his mom, but he was also incredibly hurt and angry by what she had done. It was a difficult situation, and I didn't know how to fix it. When we finally went back home, I tried to put the whole incident behind me and focus on our new life together. But it was hard. Every time I thought about our wedding day, I felt a pang of sadness. I kept replaying the events in my head, wondering how things could have been different if Maria hadn't pulled that prank. It felt like a dark cloud hanging over what should have been a beautiful memory. Thankfully, we soon left for our honeymoon, and it was such a relief to get away from all the drama and stress. Jaden and I had an amazing time exploring new places and creating beautiful memories together. It was the perfect escape, and for those 2 weeks, I felt like everything was back to normal. We laughed, relaxed, and enjoyed each other's company without a care in the world. But when we came back, reality hit us hard. As soon as we pulled into our driveway, there was Maria, waiting for us at the door. My heart sank, and I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I knew this confrontation was coming, but I wasn't ready for it to happen the moment we got back. The worst part was that she didn't apologize. Instead, she kept saying that it wasn't her fault and that she only meant it as a prank. She stood there, trying to justify her actions, saying things like, "I didn't think it would hurt you and I just wanted to lighten the mood." It was infuriating to see her refuse to take responsibility for what she did. I couldn't believe that she was trying to downplay the whole incident as if it were just a harmless joke. Jaden couldn't take it anymore. He lost it and told her that this was it. He said that she had crossed a line, and she needed to own up to it. The only way he was ever going to talk to her again was if she apologized to me. He told her that she had hurt me deeply and it was not okay. Maria tried to interrupt, but he wasn't having it. He went on to say that from now on, the only time they would be meeting was during holidays. No more dropping in at random weekends, no unnecessary calls. He said it would be like they were distant relatives who only meet on special occasions. Maria was shocked and started to cry, but Jaden stood firm. I could see how much it hurt him to have to put his foot down with his own mother, but he was determined to stand by me and make sure that I felt safe and respected. Yesterday, while I was at the office, I got a call from Maria. I was really surprised because we hadn't spoken in a while, and I wasn't expecting her to reach out, especially not during work hours. She told me she was outside my office and wanted to meet. I was taken aback and definitely didn't want her coming inside and causing any unnecessary drama. So, I decided to go meet her outside to avoid any scenes. We sat down in a little cafe across the street, and I could see that she looked really upset. As soon as we started talking, she broke down crying. It was so awkward because people around us started staring. She told me that she couldn't believe what Jaden was doing. He wasn't picking up her calls or responding to her messages. She was really distraught and begged me to talk to him on her behalf, saying that she just wanted things to go back to how they were before. I want to remind you guys that up to this point, Maria had still not apologized to me for what happened at the wedding. It was like she was in complete denial about the impact of her actions. I told her that instead of coming to my office and making a scene, she should be thinking about how her actions had affected me and Jaden. I explained that she ruined my wedding day, and it wasn't fair to expect me to just brush that aside and talk to Jaden for her. She tried to defend herself, saying she didn't mean any harm and that she was sorry I had a reaction like that. It was like she couldn't see past her own perspective and understand that her actions had real consequences. She kept insisting that if she had known what would happen, she would have never done anything like that. As she continued to cry, people in the cafe started looking at us with concern. I was feeling really uncomfortable and just wanted to get out of there. I told her that I'd see what I could do, but I made no promises. I still haven't talked to Jaden as I am not sure if I am ready to forgive Maria. I mean, she didn't even apologize until I reminded her to do that. My mom told me to let it go and forgive my mother-in-law. But I am not so sure. What do you guys think? I would appreciate suggestions. Update 1. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for your comments and suggestions. It means a lot to have a place to share my story and get support. I was really tired of Maria's constant texts and calls, and it was starting to wear me down. So, I decided that it was time to have another talk with Jaden and figure out a way to move forward. I told Jaden that Maria had come to my office and apologized to me. It was a bit of a stretch because, in reality, her apology wasn't exactly what I needed, but I felt like it was time to try and mend things, even if just a little bit. I told him that I had forgiven her, which was mostly true because I wanted to put this whole mess behind us and focus on our future. Jaden looked at me with concern and asked if I was sure. I told him yes, I was ready to move on, but we needed to set some boundaries with his mom to prevent any more drama. He seemed relieved that I was willing to forgive her, but he also knew that this wasn't just about me, it was about us as a couple and our need for peace and stability. After our talk, Jaden texted Maria, letting her know that he was glad she had apologized to me and that we were ready to try to move forward. But he also made it clear that he still stood firm on what he had said before: no more dropping by our place unannounced, no more constant calls, and no more overstepping boundaries. He told her that we needed some space to focus on our own lives. Maria responded almost immediately, saying that she was sorry for everything and that she just wanted to be a part of our lives. She promised to respect our boundaries and to give us the space we needed. I still have mixed feelings about the whole situation. On one hand, I am glad that Maria seemed to be taking our boundaries seriously. But on the other hand, I still feel a bit uneasy because I knew that one slip-up could bring all the drama back. I am trying to focus on the positive and remind myself that we are making progress, even if it is slow. Also, some of you guys have asked about my anxiety issues. I just want to say that I don't feel comfortable talking about this in detail, but I appreciate your concern. My anxiety wasn't because I was unsure about Jaden or our relationship. I knew he was the one for me from the moment we got serious. It was more about the wedding day itself and all the stress that comes with planning such a big event. We had over 200 guests coming, and I wanted everything to be perfect for them. I was so worried that something would go wrong, like the food not being good, the music not being fun, or the decorations not turning out the way I envisioned. I kept thinking about all the little things that could ruin the day, and it made me really anxious. I wanted our guests to have the time of their lives and to remember our wedding as a beautiful and joyous celebration. Update 2. Hi guys. So, something unexpected happened, and I'm not sure how to feel about it. Everything was going smoothly until last weekend when Jaden got a call from Maria inviting us both to dinner at her place. She said it was important for us to have this dinner to start getting things back to normal after everything that had happened. Jaden told me about the invitation and asked what I wanted to do. I told him it would be fine and that we should go. Maybe it was her way of trying to make amends. When we arrived at Maria's house, she welcomed us with a warm smile. However, after we finished eating, Maria surprised me with something that left me completely puzzled. She got up and came back with a check for $5,000. She handed it to me, saying she was really sorry for ruining my wedding day and that while she couldn't undo the past, she wanted to give me this money as a way to make up for it. I was totally taken aback and immediately felt uncomfortable. It was such an unexpected gesture, and I didn't know how to react. I refused the money right away and told her that I didn't need it and that we should just let bygones be bygones. Jaden agreed and told her that she didn't need to give us any money. But Maria was insistent. She wouldn't take the check back and ended up putting it in my coat pocket forcefully. I was so surprised and didn't know what to do. She seemed desperate for us to accept it, which made the whole situation even more awkward. Soon after that, we left her house and came back home. On the way back, Jaden and I talked about what had happened, and we both felt a bit confused. Why would Maria give us such a large amount of money? It felt strange and made me wonder what her intentions were. Was she really sorry, or was this her way of trying to buy our forgiveness? I'm not sure, and it's left me feeling really unsettled. Jaden and I talked about it again, and we're still not sure what to do. He's as confused as I am, and we both want to handle this situation in a way that's fair and respectful. We don't want to hurt Maria's feelings or reject her efforts to make amends, but we also don't want to feel like we're being bought off. If anyone has any suggestions or has been through a similar situation, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Update 3. Well, it's been 2 weeks since my last update, and honestly, not much has changed. We still have the check that Maria gave us, but we haven't cashed it. It's just sitting in our drawer, almost like a reminder of everything that's happened. I'm not really sure what we'll end up doing with it, but for now, it's just there. Things with Maria are pretty much the same. We're in a kind of holding pattern, where we're all trying to be civil and respectful without diving too deep into the past. She's been respecting our boundaries, which is a huge relief. She doesn't show up unannounced anymore, and she stopped the constant barrage of texts and calls. It feels like she's genuinely trying to do better, and it gives me some hope for the future. Jaden and Maria talk on the phone regularly, and their conversations seem to be positive. I'm glad that their relationship hasn't been too badly impacted by everything that happened. I also talk to Maria sometimes. Our conversations are polite and a bit formal, but there's an effort on both sides to keep things friendly. So, I think this will be my last update for a while. I don't expect much to change anytime soon, and I'm hoping that things will continue to improve little by little. I want to focus on the positive and keep moving forward, and I think that's the best thing I can do right now. If anything major happens, I might pop back in with an update, but for now, I'm going to take a step back and focus on living my life. Thank you again for everything, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.